Hey, it's Monday, March 27th. Now, the last time you get to hear me tell a story. As we wrap up our last one for today, this is also last week of Greek mythology. So today we get to our last story about a guy named Heracles. Tomorrow, review game, Wednesday, review game. I am aware that there is a lot that happened in Greek mythology and it can be a little bit confusing. So the way it's going to work is I give you 2 days of review before we have the test. For review, when we cover things that you don't know, that'll be the indication. That's the thing you should go back and, sorry, hiccups. To go back and figure out what it is you don't know. So that way you don't have to go back and listen to 100 different 25-minute videos. Just figure out which things you don't know from us doing the review, and that'll help you out. Tomorrow's review is you against the rest of the class, but you have a chance of winning candy or B points, depending on how well you do. And then Wednesday, I break the class into 2 teams, and you guys battle each other. Half of you get candy on Wednesday, and half of you are losers. And so we'll just sort of figure it out from there. And then Thursday is the test. I think it's around 40 questions. You will only have 1 attempt, because that's all you're going to have time for, is the 1 attempt. Because time-wise, that's the way it's going to work out. Camp stuff, you will get all of that after spring break. So when you come back from break, then that's when you're going to find out what group you're in, what cabin you're in, bus you're in. I'll also talk about packing. I'll talk about weather. I'll cover all of that stuff with you. And then grades and B points are updated as far as the quiz from Friday and the B points and stuff like that. We are now done with this. Whatever list you see over there is pretty much locked in, because we will not have time today because it's a long story. Tomorrow and Wednesday's review, and we're going to have too much fun for that one. Thursday, you'll be brain dead. So with that one on the list, that got you the 5 points. Go you. If you're the top 2 names, it got you additional points. So go them there. Quiz-wise, last Friday, not bad. Overall grade was a 74% across all of my regular classes together. It shows you the overall breakdown of where the different scores were. Most of you guys were like in the 75 to like 90-some percentiles, where the vast majority of you were. And then there were some that trickled down in 10%.
Wow!
There's some people who don't put effort into the quizzes and don't necessarily do so well. And so it comes across on there. But as you can see, most people were over here, which is where I want you to be, so it went pretty well. There was only a handful of questions we struggled on. So this was one of them. Which of the following would be the best cause for why Zeus has Pandora created in the first place? So cause means it has to happen before the event. So if you put evils released into the world, that happens after. That can't be a cause.
It's mankind.
The other big one was Prometheus messes up the creation of humans. Who messes up the creation of humans? Epimetheus. Different god. Those were the 2 most common answers. The correct answer, the mankind. No, come back. The mankind one. And that's what led to it. So that was the one that for some reason I think people just didn't read the question very closely. And 6, again, one I think people did not read closely. Complete the analogy. I gave you the hint, punishment. So Arachne's connected to Athena. Who punishes who?
Arachne punishes Zeus. Oh, Zeus.
No, between Arachne and Athena.
Oh. Athena punishes.
Athena punishes Arachne. So then with Phaethon, who punishes Phaethon?
Zeus.
There you go. Most kids put Apollo. Very few kids put Zeus. I don't know why. I had the same question. But that was the most common wrong answer. And Apollo was barely even in the story. So it kind of, I'm assuming they just saw Phaethon, sun, and then just went Apollo. Who knows? And then at the very end, grammar, the 2 adverbs. Helios worked hard to drive the sun chariot, and his kids stupidly smashed it into the ground.
Hard, stupidly.
Well, 1. The second one most kids got, which was stupidly. The first one was a little tougher because it describes worked, and that would be, there you go. So those were the 2 adverbs on that one. Hard and then stupidly. Yay! For today's story, The last one, we're going to deal with a guy by the name of Heracles.
Hercules.
Yeah, I thought it was Hercules.
Oh, you do? I bet we're going to talk about that in just a second, so I don't have to make fun of you. Silly children. One, for those of you who are wanting an A+, I won't be able to get the whole story done. It's too long of a story for one day. So I'm going to get through the first column, and I'm going to do the very last column. I'm going to do the beginning and end. The middle, you'll have to read on your own if you're wanting an A on the quizzes and stuff like that.
Nope.
If you don't care about an A, skip it, and you just let it be a surprise. That's up to you as far as that part goes. So, as you get into it, there's a whole bunch of things he has to do. I won't have time to go through all those. I'm going to give you the beginning and the very end. But for now, the thing that you just yelled at me about. Hercules versus Heracles. Yes, I'm aware that you call him Hercules. The problem is, that's not his name in Greek mythology. That's his name in Roman mythology. When we talked about the fact that, do you remember Ares' Roman name? Connected to the planet?
Mars.
Mars. Nicely done. We talked about Hera's Roman name, connected to the month? Juno. And so that would be the same thing with this guy, Heracles. He also has a Roman name, which is Hercules. But in the Greek stories, it was not Hercules. It was Heracles. So I don't care if you call him Hercules. It's not going to bother me. I got used to you guys calling him Uranus. So Hercules is not a big deal. I just want you to know why I call him Heracles, because it makes more sense in the story. Robert?
Would it, like, on the quiz/test, would that, like, matter? Like, if you said, like, Hercules?
I bet I'd put that right there in the question if it did. I planned ahead.
I'm scared now.
As you should be. It's going to require you to think and read.
I can't read.
I
already
know.
have
I've graded your guys' tests.
Where'd Marty go?
I got
That's in English.
I have -2 grades.
So, today's story is going to begin the way most of our stories begin, with a young man by the name of... is correct. At this point, humans have now been around for a long time, and humans are well established, but Zeus decides to come down and be friendly with a human anyway. And he finds a human girl by the name of Alcmena, and he comes down and falls in deep like with Alcmena. Well, shortly after they're together, Alcmena begins to get worried that if she becomes pregnant from all of this, then there is every chance that someone's going to come after her. And she does not want Hera coming after her. So Alcmena decides to be proactive and solve this problem. So when she first begins to show part of her pregnancy, she goes to a temple of Hera and prays to the god. And she prays up and goes, Hera, I apologize for being friendly with your man. I would like to make like a deal with you. If I name my baby after you, will you not kill me? And Hera does not answer her. So Alcmena assumes the answer is yes. So before her baby is born, while it's still inside of her, she names the baby
Heracles.
Heracles. And she names it this in honor of the god Hera. Heracles actually breaks down into 2 Greek words. Hera, meaning the god, but Cles meant the joy of or to bring happiness from. So essentially, she names her unborn child the joy of Hera as a way of honoring the god to try and make the god happy in some way. It'd be like today if you were a boy and your parents named you Happy Susie. Not just Susie, but Happy Susie. Needless to say, it leads to issues because her child when born is not a daughter. Her child is a son. And so now we have a son by the name of Happy Hera. And so other kids make fun of him. But before that, the night he is born, something happens to him.
He gets attacked by snakes.
How many of you guys have seen the cartoon, the Hercules cartoon from Disney? If you have, I'm going to make a couple references, and I was trying to find pictures from my BroviCast. It is easy to find them from the movie. There are really only 2 things in that movie that they got correct. Almost everything in the movie has nothing to do with the Greek mythology, except for 2 things. One is this scene, and there's going to be one coming up in a moment I'll talk about. Everything else, oosh. So here, the night that little baby Heracles is born, Hera decides she's going to kill this baby.
What?
She does agree to the deal, and she is not going to kill Alcmena. but she decides the baby still needs to die to teach other women a lesson. So the night little baby Heracles is born, she sends 2 snakes in to kill this little tiny baby. Problem is, baby Heracles is way strong. Home baby is ripped. So when the snakes come in to kill him, this is one of the few things the movie got right. And he kills these 2 snakes when they come in. They slither over the top. He reaches up and grabs them like little rattles and goes, shucka, 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 shucka. If you've ever seen those little squeeze balls where you squeeze when the eyeballs pop out, that's basically what he does to these snakes, killing them. Well, Hera sees this happen. She goes, oh, snap. This boy be strong. And she realizes she's going to have to be careful. So Hera backs off and comes up with a new plan. She goes, all right, I'm still going to kill him. The boy got to die. But I have to be sneaky with how I go about doing it. So she decides to come up with a whole new method to go after him. Well, drawback is, young Heracles, 1, has a name that makes him get fun of at school. 2, he has inherited his father's bad temper. Because who's his father? Zeus. Which leads to him getting in lots of fights throughout school. When he becomes a teenager, it turns out he was really bad at music class. He was so bad at music class that oftentimes the music teacher would not even let him practice his lute in school. The teacher made him take his lute out into the woods where no one was around. And the teacher would make fun of him and be like, oh my God, you are so bad. If you play this around people, they would die. And you don't want to be a murderer. And he was like, oh, I'm really good. Listen. Blang, ding, ding, bang, 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 bang. And that made the teacher even more angry. He was like, oh my God, how is your uncle, Apollo, the god of music? It should be like a donkey because you're so bad at it. And he kept making fun of Heracles. Well, eventually, Heracles snaps with this teacher making fun of him nonstop. And he can't take it any longer. And one day when the teacher makes fun of him, he takes his little lute and he bonks the teacher over the head. 1, you should never hit a teacher. Hitting teachers is bad. 2, are you a teacher? Oh no, you're teaching yourself not to talk. Slowly though. And so you also should never hit a teacher when you have superhuman strength. Because it ends up killing his teacher. And he kills, by the way, killing a teacher is bad. You should never kill a teacher. I know, I look at you guys and I see student revolution in your eyes. I'm telling you, teacher killing is a naughty thing to do. Well, Heracles realizes he's done a naughty thing. And so he picks up his teacher and goes running back to the village. And he's like, I need your help, I need your help. And he comes in and he puts his teacher down and all the villagers come out and go, oh my God, what happened to him? He says, well, we were out in the woods and I was practicing music. Like, how bad are you that your music killed him? He goes, no, that's not what it was. No, I was playing my music, and then he got hit with my lute. They're like, oh, you're playing it wrong. You're not supposed to swing. He's like, no, I didn't play it wrong. I hit him in the head, and I killed him. And they're like, oh, you're a murderer. He's like, yeah, that's what it is. And they go, well, killing a teacher is the worst thing you can do. And the whole village gets together and they go, hey, we can't have a teacher killer here. You're kicked out. And they banish him from his town. He even goes to his mom. He's like, Mom, they're kicking me out. She goes, what'd you do? And he's like, I just killed a teacher. She's like, oh, that's embarrassing. You're out. And even she kicks him out. And he is forced to leave while still a teenager. And he wanders. And he ends up wandering for years, eventually settling outside of this other town, building a house in the woods, living out there by himself. Well, this is the other thing that the Hercules cartoon got right. He meets a girl and falls in love. A girl by the name of Megara. And he and Megara fall in love. And this part was actually in the cartoon. What they left out was they had a family. They ended up having 2 sons. And I don't know the names. We're going to call them Heracles Jr. and Heracles III. And so it was a family, and they lived out in the woods together, and things went well. One day, Heracles goes out chopping wood so they can make a fire for dinner. And he's out there chopping wood, and this is the day that Hera decides she wants to get revenge. So she sneaks up behind him and turns herself invisible. and she sneaks up behind him and bedinks him in the head. Badink! And when she bedinks him in the head, he immediately turns around like, I feel like I just got bedinked, but he can't see anything. And Hera walks away laughing, giggle, 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 and disappears. When he shakes his head, he's like, well, that was weird. Felt like I got bedinked in the head, but I can't see anything, so oh well. And he heads back home, drops off the pile of wood, and it says, Hon, I'm home. And he goes into his house to see his family. But when he goes into his house to see his family's gone. They're not there. And instead, comes running at him is this monster. And he freaks out with this monster running at him. And he was like, where's my family? And the monster runs at him going, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, no, bad monster. And he pulls out his axe and he slaughters and kills the monster. He then tries to find his family. Can't find them anywhere. He does get attacked by 2 more small monsters that come running at him, and he kills both those monsters too, but never finds his family. So he decides to go get help. And he goes down to the nearest village that he can find and says, hey, I need your help. And they're like, you're covered in blood. He goes, I know. Monsters came and kidnapped my family, and I just killed those monsters with this axe. Welcome back, Jacob. And he goes, I need your help to come find my family. And they all go, yay! And the whole town comes together, and they come with him to come find his family.
He just killed his family.
The villagers all come back to his house, and he goes, all right, spread out, and we're going to try and find out where they are. Look for clues. And the villagers go, time out. He goes, what? They go, can we see the monsters? Like, we've never seen monsters before. He's like, I killed them. We're in a hurry. They go, I know, but like monsters is really cool. Can we just like peek inside? He goes, fine. Quickly take a peek. We gotta go. So the villagers all go over to his house like, monsters! And they go, creak! And they look inside, and the villagers start screaming like, ah! And he's like, I know! Monsters are scary! And they look at him, and they go, ah! And he goes, I know! I killed them with this axe! And they go, ah! And he goes, I know! Their blood's all over me! They go, ah! And he goes, why are you guys still screaming? That's so weird. And he goes over, and he looks inside, and he finds his family.
Oh, God.
He did. Oh, my.
So it turns out that when Hera bedinked him in his head, she knew he lived by himself. So she cursed him so that the next people he would see as monsters. So it turns out she tricked him into killing his own family.
Oh my God.
For some reason, they did not put this in the Hercules movie.
Because
Odd, right?
Yeah, because it would traumatize him because he wants to change
I
it.
know, I get traumatized by that kid talking to me. And so with this one, the villagers all start to talk to him. They go, hey, you can't stay here. You killed your family and called them monsters. They go, the only thing worse than killing your family is like killing a teacher. He's like, oh, I have bad news for you. So this town also kicks him out. And they go, you have to leave. And he gets banished again and begins to wander. In his wandering, he finds a temple dedicated to Zeus, his father. And he figures, well, I might as well ask my dad for forgiveness and guidance and see what I can do. So he prays to Zeus and goes, Papa, I killed my family. I made a bad choice. I thought they were monsters. I need help. Can you give me guidance? And Zeus talks to him and goes, hey, that's pretty bad. I threw my kid out a window once, and I've been unfaithful to my wife, but I never killed my family. I'll have to talk to the other Olympians and see what we can come up with. So Zeus talks to the Olympians, and then comes back to him and goes, all right, here's what we've come up with. There are 12 there are 12 Olympians. Because there's 12 Olympians, we've decided you have to do 12 labors, which are like missions or quests. You have to do 12 quests in 12 years. You have to get all 12 done in 12 years. If you don't, if you fail one of them, or if it takes you more than 12 years, you spend the rest of eternity down in Tartarus. But if you can get it done, your soul is wiped clean and everything is good. Mallory? I was guessing. Heracles agrees. He goes, done. Sounds like a good idea. I am all for it. He goes, if I lose, then so be it, but I have faith in myself. He goes, all right, what's the first thing you want me to do? Zeus goes, no, that's not how it works. You're my son. I love you. I can't give you any of these missions because I won't be mean enough to you. And you need to have impossible missions to really test you. I can only think of one person that hates you enough to come up with something creative. And it's a cousin of his, a guy by the name of King Eurystheus. King Eurystheus was a cousin who was considered a child of one of the other ones, one of the other Olympians, I believe Ares, but I don't know for sure. King Eurystheus was a wussy, this skinny, weak man who hated Heracles because Heracles was big and strong and outgoing, all the things King Eurystheus was not. So Zeus says to King Eurystheus, you need to come up with 12 impossible missions in 12 years, and you need to make them so tough, nobody can get them done. King Eurystheus is excited. He's like, done! I'm on this one. So Heracles shows up and goes, all right, what's the first one? He goes, all right, here's the first. There's this nearby town called Nemea, and there's a lion that's been going around killing people in Nemea for years. It has killed literally hundreds of people over all of this time. What I want you to do is go find this lion of Nemea, the Nemean lion, and kill it. And that's making it free, the town free of this constant torment. Heracles says, done, and off he goes to go pick a fight with this lion. Shows up, confronts the lion. He goes, hey, Mr. Meow Meow, I'm here to kill you. Ari?
In the movie, they did an Easter egg where it looked like Scar from Lion King.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I thought about putting that on there too to tickle the fun of it. And so he has to go and kill this lion. Well, lion's not very happy about it, so the lion's up for the fight, and they go and charge at each other. Heracles pulls out his big sword and goes to stab the lion. But when he goes to stab the lion, he discovers that King Eurystheus did not tell him something, which is that the lion had impenetrable skin. Big word. Do you guys know what impenetrable means?
It can't. You can't.
Cannot be pierced or broken. And so that was why this lion had been killing so many people. Its skin could not be pierced at all. So when he goes to stab it, his sword just bounces right off. So he backs up, pulls out his bow and arrow, fires that, those go bouncing off of him. And now Heracles realizes that King Eurystheus has set him up. So he goes into it, and they start battling and fighting and punching. And in the process of this, he realizes he's been watching a lot of WWE lately. And there was a move he saw in the most recent episode of WWE Raw where you go behind him and you do a choking maneuver. So that's what he does to the lion. He goes behind the lion and gets it into a little sleeper hold where he gets it behind the head and pushes it on the head, and the lion's like, meow, 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 and ends up killing this lion. Well, once he's killed the lion, his next thought is, holy cow, what I want is this lion skin to use as armor, because then nothing else can hurt me if I'm wearing impenetrable lion skin.
Exactly.
But how do you skin a lion who has impenetrable skin?
Poison.
Well, that wouldn't skin it, that would just kill it, and it's already dead.
Chainsaw.
And so also does not exist. But he comes up with an idea when he reaches down, grabs the lion's paw, and squeezes. When he does, the lion's own claw goes ba-dunk. He then turns it around and guts the lion using its own claw. Turns out the lion's claw was the only thing strong enough to pierce its own skin. He then guts it and then uses the skin as armor. And almost every time you see Heracles after this, you'll always see him wearing this lion as armor that he got from this very first battle. He goes back to talk to King Eurystheus. He's like, hey, that was great. Thank you. Killed the lion, and I now have new armor. What else do you have for me to do? King Eurystheus is not happy about that. He's like, all right, got another thing for you. How about this? He goes, there's the snake monster that's been killing people called a Hydra.
Dragon.
If you've seen the Marvel movies, for those of you who like the Marvel movies, Captain America, Steve Rogers, the bad guy corporation that he fights against is called Hydra. Comes all the way back to this. And so the Hydra was this giant snake monster, and it lived in a swamp that he had to go fight. But this snake monster had a couple things about it that made it especially tough. One, the blood was so poisonous that a single drop touching your skin was enough to kill you. So you could not have a single drop of its blood touch you anywhere. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was if you cut off one head,
3 more could pop up.
2 would grow back.
I thought it was 3.
It's still not. So it started off with 1 head, and when that got chopped off, 2 heads would grow back in that spot. If you chopped off one of those heads, now you have 3 heads that come back.
5.
By the time Heracles gets there, it was up to between 7 to 12 heads. And so he did his research this time. He learned after the lion problem. So now he knows what he's getting himself into and what kind of tough thing it will be.
Choppy, choppy,
So
chop.
he needs help. So he goes to the nearby town
His
and
brother.
recruits a kid to help him, this teenager. He goes, hey, how would you like to be famous? And the kid's like, boo diggity. He's like, I need you to help me come kill a hydra. And the kid's all in for it. So he gives the kid a giant burning torch. And he goes, here's what I'm going to have you do. Take this torch, and then every time I cut off one of the heads, you run in there and use the torch to melt the neck shut. And the kid says, done. And they go out there, and it works. And they fight against the hydra. Every time Heracles chops off a head, the kid runs out there and smashes it with this big burning torch, melting the neck closed. And they manage to go through and kill off the entire hydra. Well, Heracles thinks this hydra thing is so cool, he decides to take all of his arrows from his quiver
And dip them in the blood.
and dip them in the blood. He
And
takes
then
each one
poison through
and
gold.
pokes it into the hydra, so then the whole arrow was covered with this poison. And it was thought they were so dangerous, he didn't even have to hit you. All it had to do is skim you, and it's just barely touching you was enough to kill a person. So again, he goes back to King Eurystheus. By the way, there's an actual monument in Greece of Heracles fighting the hydra, which I thought was kind of cool. He goes back to the king and says, hey, that was awesome also. I now have killer arrows to go with my new armor. What do you got for me next? Well, the king keeps coming up with new ideas until we get to the 5th one, where he realizes killing things is not going to work. This dude is way too tough. So for the 5th one, he gets creative. And on this one, the king had a friend named King Minos, who had 1,000 horses that he had, and they had not cleaned the stables in 10 years. It was said that there was so much horse poop, it was deeper than a man was tall. King Eurystheus goes, this is your next one. For task number 5, you have to clean out this horse barn of horse poop all in one day. You have from sunup to sundown. Any poop remains, you fail. Well, Heracles solves this one also. He goes and gets giant boulders, throws them into the middle, redirecting this river. Thus the river ends up going through and flooding this giant barn, getting rid of all the horse poop in only a couple hours. He removes the rocks, rivers go back, and he solves this one also. When I said there was going to be something that you had to read, it's the labors. Like, I'm not going to have time to go through all 12 labors, which is too bad because they're really cool. We just don't have time for all of them. The other one I will mention to you is at one point he does have to go find Atlas. Where is Atlas?
A mountain carrying
On top of a mountain. In the process of getting up to Atlas, he ends up coming across a Titan chained to a mountain. That Titan being
Atlas.
Prometheus. He talks to Prometheus, and in the process of talking to Prometheus, just is like, hey, why are you here? And he goes, well, Zeus is punishing me for giving fire to humans. Heracles is like, I'm half human, which means you doing that saved my mom. So you're awesome. So he decides to go against his father's wishes and free Prometheus, and breaks Prometheus free, thus setting him on his way. Heracles manages to get through all 12 labors in the 12-year time period, and things are good. He then, afterwards, goes out and gets married to a new woman because his soul is clean and everything is good. For this next part of the story, you have to know what a centaur is.
Half horse, half man.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
A man horse.
The top half man, bottom half horse. Wesley?
So there was this creature in the Lion, the Witch, Wardrobe.
Yeah.
Was that a centaur or was it something else?
That was the satyr, half man, half
That's
goat.
right, yeah.
And so with this one, Heracles, Nakai,
Actually, found it's just like that with the horse, but it was half man and half scorpion. Just the hands was.
yeah, that was another rock movie, The Scorpion King. That's not from Greek mythology.
What is
That's
with every movie involving Dwayne the Rock?
so with this, Heracles and his new wife are going on their honeymoon. In the process of them going on their honeymoon, they come across this river that they cannot get across. So they get the help of a centaur who stops by, and the centaur offers to have her jump on his back, and he is going to take her across.
Oh my God.
Well, he goes across, falls in love with her, and decides to woman nap her, and takes off running.
Yes.
Heracles knows that he has to stop him before he gets too far away. And how do you stop someone from a distance?
Arrows.
Bow and arrow. So he shoots his bow and arrow and hits
The back.
the centaur, killing him. But the centaur does not die immediately, and as he's laying there dying, he tells Heracles, his wife, I apologize for woman napping you. It was awful of me. But to make it up to you, I will tell you a secret. My blood, centaur blood, is an aphrodisiac, which is a big word, which means a potion that was supposed to be created by Aphrodite. So what would an aphrodisiac do?
Love.
Make you fall in love. He goes, centaur blood will make you fall in love. Take some of my blood, keep it in a container, and if you ever think your husband is being unfaithful or no longer loves you, use my blood, put it onto his clothes, don't touch it yourself, and then once it touches him, the first person he thinks of is who he'll fall in love with. And so she keeps some of the centaur's blood in a little bottle, and then he dies. Years go by. She keeps the bottle safe until one day, Heracles is off fighting this war, and rumor gets back to her that he has fallen in love with this princess in the kingdom, this young new princess. And she realizes this is the time that he is going to cheat on her, and she knows how to stop him from cheating. So she gets out the centaur blood he's been keeping this whole time, gets open this big, beautiful red robe, and pours the centaur blood on the inside of the robe, carefully folds it back up without touching it, puts a note on top that says, think of me, and put this on, and sends it to Heracles. Heracles gets this, thinks of his wife, and is like, oh my God, that's so sweet of her, she's awesome. Throws it on, and begins to scream. And realizing the centaur lied. His blood was not an aphrodisiac. He realized there was something on the arrows, which was
Poison.
the hydra blood from the poison. Well, that hydra blood is now on Heracles. If Heracles was a normal human, he would have died. But he's half god, so he's just put into pain. The only way he can die is with the help of his friends. So his friends build a giant bonfire in the middle of town. Heracles jumps into the middle of the bonfire, and they all shoot him with arrows at the same time. The hydra blood, the fire, and the arrows are all enough to finally kill Heracles, and he dies. Once he's dead, Hera finally admits what she did, and she comes clean and says, hey, he never actually killed his wife and family. That was me tricking him, and it turns out he was kind of innocent. So because of that, Zeus completely forgives Heracles and wipes away all of his mistakes. Hera actually feels bad again. And you remember this family tree?
Yeah.
We talked about Hebe, which was one of Hera's daughters who has a job on Mount Olympus.
Eternal youth and Heracles.
Close.
Eternal youth.
Her job on Mount Olympus?
Maid. The servant.
She was the servant or maid. Well, turns out Heracles falls in love with Hebe, and that becomes his third wife, who he spends the rest of time with. Now, that is the end of Heracles. And because I've had people ask, is there a story about who overthrows Zeus? The answer is no. Zeus is never overthrown by one of his children. He is overthrown by a man by the name of Jesus. Because basically other religions pop up and people turn away from the gods and they ended up turning to other religions.
And then the
And
giants
that's
died.
where Jesus comes in. So technically, he is the one that killed Zeus.
Jesus.